Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more members, notable names in uh, Arab American history. Today we are here to talk about James Abourezk. He was the first American U.S. Senator, and as you can see, it's got an article here, dying at age 92, which this was from late 2023, or early 2023, sorry, that this article's from. But yeah, South Dakota Democrat who grew up in the Rosebud Indian Reservation, became the first Arab American U.S. Senator and is known for his quick wit as he advocated for populist causes. But he would pass away at 92 years of age in Sioux Falls. But yeah, James Abourezk. Let's dig into him a little bit here. This is from history.house.gov. James George Abourezk, senator and representative, is the offices he held for the state of South Dakota. He was a Democrat and was in the 92nd Congress, 93rd, 94th, and 95th. So 1971 through 1979 was the Congresses he was in. But yeah, quick biography. He was a representative and senator from South Dakota, born in Wood, South Dakota, on February the 24th, 1931. Attended the Wood and Mission public schools. Graduated as a civil engineer from the South Dakota School of Mines in Rapid City, South Dakota in 1961. Graduated from the University of South Dakota Law School excuse me, in Vermillion, South Dakota in 1966. Was a lawyer who was admitted to the South Dakota bar in 1966, and commenced practice in Rapid City, South Dakota, serving in the U.S. Navy from 1948 to 1952, and elected as a Democrat to the 92nd Congress in serving on January 3rd, 1971. So, chose not to go for re-election in the House of Representatives, but was elected as a Democrat to the U.S. Senate. So served one term in the House and then to the Senate, and served from January 3rd, 73 to January 3rd, 79. So one term in the Senate. Was not a candidate for re-election in 78. Had been chairman on the Select Committee on Indian Affairs for the 95th Congress, chairman on American Indian Policy Review Commission in 1976, resumed the practice of law and began a career in writing as a resident of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, until his death on February the 24th, 2023. He was interned in the Black Hills National Cemetery in Sturgis, South Dakota. So yeah. But there's what they've got on the government website for him. Now, let's find out more about him a bit more in depth here. Uh, ba, 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 ba. He was born January 24th, 1931, Wood, South Dakota, and would pass away, as we said, February 24th, 2023, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Would be married to a Mary Ann Houghton in 1952, divorced in 1981, then married in 1982 to a Margaret Bethea, and it just says divorce. They don't tell me. It might say later on, but yeah. And then finally a Sana Dieb, who he married in 1991. They don't say he was necessarily divorced, but again, we don't know. He had 3 children altogether with his wives. Earned a Bachelor of Science from South Dakota's School of Mines and Technology, and a JD from the University of South Dakota so he could practice law. Went into the U.S. Navy out of high school, 48 to 52, serving in the Korean War. Let's see. His family was Lebanese Greek Orthodox Christians. He was one of 5 children, and both of his parents were immigrants from Lebanon. His mother, Lena Abourezk, was a homemaker, and his father, Charles Abourezk, was the owner of 2 general stores. They grew up on the Rosebud Indian Reservation. He spoke only Arabic at home and did not learn English until he went to elementary school. Was expelled at the age of 16 from school for playing a prank on the teacher and left home to live with his brother. He would complete high school in 1948, and of course we know he went into the Navy in 1948, serving in the Navy during the Korean War. Had 12 weeks of boot camp and enrolled in the electrician's mate's school after he was sent to support Navy ships stationed in Japan. After his military service, he worked on a ranch, in a casino, as a judo instructor, ran the Gay Lady Bar in Rockerville, South Dakota, where he employed future governor of South Dakota, Bill Janklow, as a bartender. Let's see. Earned a degree in civil engineering in 61. So he worked a number of jobs after coming back from the Navy, and then finally went into to school to learn civil engineering, working as a civil engineer in California before returning back to South Dakota to work on the Minuteman silos being built as part of the new 44th Strategic Missile Wing at Ellsworth Air Force Base. At 32, he decided to become a lawyer. Earned his JD, Juris Doctor degree, in 66. Let's see. Was a lawyer in Rapid City, South Dakota. Became a Democrat. Ran in 1968 for Attorney General of South Dakota, but was defeated. 1970 was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, serving one term, and then that was served for South Dakota's 2nd Congressional District, which was eliminated in 83 from, I'm assuming, shrinking population, leaving one district. Which usually, yeah, you only get one representative if your state's population is so low, so. In 1972, Abourezk was elected to the U.S. Senate, serving one term. Chose not to seek a second term. Was the first chair of the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. In 1974, Time magazine said he was one of the 200 faces for the future. Let's see. In the Senate, he helped pass the 1975 Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, as well as the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. His signature legislation, they say, was the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978, which was to protect Native American children and families from being torn apart. Because Native American children have often been removed by state social agencies from their family and placed in foster care or adoption at a disproportionately high rate, and usually placed with non-Native American families. So yeah. But that was his signature legislation. Let's see. As a senator, he condemned the Office of Public Safety, which was a Cold War era program within the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, which provided training to foreign police forces and was prone to human rights abuses. So he stood up a lot for human rights. Awesome. Introduced legislation that resulted in the banning of overseas police assistance in 1974 and the closure of the OPS in 1975. He was approached almost daily once in office to take sides. He was approached by members of different sides once taking office in regards to conflict in the Middle East. He was invited by the Lebanese embassy to visit Beirut in 1973. Later that same year, he met the Arab leaders to discuss a possible peace settlement and attempted to negotiate a truce contingent on Israel's return to the old city of Jerusalem, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip, which was rejected by Israel, because as we now know, they just want to commit genocide and take the land regardless. In 76, Abourezk voted against the rest of the Senate on a measure to stop foreign aid, to countries harboring international terrorists, arguing that there was no provision for terrorist acts committed by the Israeli army. And even today, the Israeli military committing terrorist acts, and it's just treated as, no, they're defending themselves. No, they're not. Abourezk and George McGovern in 1973 attempted to end the Wounded Knee occupation by negotiating with the American Indian movement leaders who were in the standoff with federal law enforcement after demanding that the federal government honor its historical treaties with the Oglala Sioux Nation. The summer after the occupation, Abourezk introduced the American Indian Policy Review Commission Act, which created the 11-member commission and served as its chairman until its landmark report was published in 1977. He took the gavel as chairman of the Select Committee on Indian Affairs from its creation in 77 to 79 when he left the Senate. So yeah, huge in helping Native American causes. Because again, he grew up on a Native American reservation, even though he himself was of Arab descent. In 1976, ordered the GAO, General Accounting Office, to carry out an investigation after doctor and lawyer Connie Redbird Pinker-Manuri published a report suggesting that up to a quarter of Native American women had been involuntarily sterilized. Yep. He was an early champion of more direct democracy through a national initiative process similar to the state initiative process adopted by South Dakota in 1898. In 77, he co-sponsored a proposal for a constitutional amendment that would allow federal laws to be enacted through popular vote, together with Senator Mark Hatfield of Oregon. Under the resolution, voters could put legislation on a national election ballot if they secured signatures from 3% of voters in the previous presidential election. It would not be passed, though, and just he brought a lot of attention to it and got a movement going, but no action was taken on it by Congress, of course. They didn't want the people to make their own decisions. In 77, Abourezk and McGovern went to Cuba with a group of basketball players from University of South Dakota and South Dakota State who played against the Cuban national men's basketball team. 78, he chose not to run for re-election and was succeeded in office by Larry Presler, with whom he had a long-running political feud. Let's see. After leaving the Senate, he served as legal counsel for the Islamic Republic of Iran in Washington, D.C., leading the New York Times to call him Iran's man in Washington. He defended the Islamic Republic in lawsuits seeking payment for contracts entered into by the former Shah's government and sought to recoup Iranian assets that were allegedly taken by Mohammad Reza Pahlavi and his wife. He was outraged by the 1967 USS Liberty incident and openly inquired about the circumstances of the attack. The shame of the USS Liberty incident is that our sailors were treated as though they were enemies, rather than the patriots and heroes that they were. There is no other incident beyond Israeli attack on the USS Liberty that shows the power of the Israeli lobby by being able to silence successive American governments, allowing the lies told by the Israelis and their minions in the U.S. is disheartening to all of us who are proud of our servicemen. Let's see. USS Liberty incident, attack on U.S. Navy technical research ship by Israeli Air Force jet fighter aircraft and an Israeli Navy motor torpedo boats during the Six-Day War in 1967. It killed 34 crew members and wounded 171 more. The more and more you look back, it's like, it's clear Israel didn't give a damn about peace. But we're not here to talk about that. Not here to talk about that. Let's get back to Mr. Abourezk. 1980, he founded the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, a grassroots civil rights organization. In 1989, he published his Advise and Dissent, Memoirs of South Dakota and the U.S. Senate. He was the co-author, along with American Jewish Committee, of Through Different Eyes, Two Leading Americans, a Jew and an Arab, Debate U.S. Policy in the Middle East. 2003, he sued the website probush.com for defamation and was later joined by Jane Fonda and Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz as plaintiffs, settling this lawsuit with the internet site in 2005. 2007, he gave an interview to the Hezbollah-funded news channel Al-Manar. In the interview, he said that he believed the Zionists used the terrorists that perpetrated the 9/11 attacks as a way to sow Islamophobia. Zionists control the U.S. Congress, and that Hezbollah and Hamas are resistance fighters. He continued to criticize Israel in 2014, writing that ending the occupation would end the rockets fired by Hamas. It would. I mean, honestly, while they don't shy away from militant means, they've said they're just trying to protect the Palestinians. And we see it over and over and over. The acts of Israel. Their behavior. And I can believe that, yeah, maybe they did want to use terrorists in the 9/11 attacks as a way to sow Islamophobia. But there's also a lot of other things that would counter that. But I can understand, yeah. Groups like AIPAC have too much power. Way too much power and sway. After retirement from the Senate, he worked as a lawyer and writer in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. and continued to be active in supporting tribal sovereignty and culture. In July 2015, he spoke out against a lawsuit filed against the ICWA by the Goldwater Institute. It was one of 3 suits seeking to overturn the act. Some states and adoption groups who make money off adoptions have opposed any prohibitions on their placements of Native American children. Abourezk considered this his signature legislation and new rules instrumental in protecting Native American children and preserving tribal families. He noted that Senator Goldwater was his friend and colleague and had voted for the legislation in '77 and had often consulted with him in tribal matters. Yet there's a group with his name on it, using his name, trying to tear it apart. I guarantee you it's because big money from these adoption groups. But yeah. 52, 81. So they still don't know exactly when he divorced, or at least they don't say. But his last wife he remained with until his death. Greek Orthodox Christian. But yeah. So, he was of Lebanese descent and born in the U.S., grew up in a Native American reservation. Yeah. So you can see how he was very much pro Native American and pro Middle East peace. Yeah. But that's been a look. Former U.S. Representative, former U.S. Senator James Abourezk. But yeah, we'll go ahead and end that episode there. I hope y'all enjoyed that. But as always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.